Dear ladies and gentlemen, still we have time for 3 questions before our dinner time, or after our dinner time, or instead of our dinner time. It's up to you to make your choice. Please.
I would like to ask why you didn't touch the geothermal energy questions. Very little information about these possibilities. And another question is about the European Union competitiveness in the world market scale on the prices and economic growth. Thank you.
So please. Agnes.
Yes, I'm Baltic from Denmark. I would like to emphasize the need of combining heat and electricity, because you talked about smart grids, but the smart grid thing should be combining heat and electricity and also transportation. All our calculations and simulations in the Danish system, where we have a very high proportion of wind, says that you really need to integrate heat and electricity in the right way, so that you get renewable energy heat, not coal-based heat. And that's the big question. But I would like to hear what you say to this, because we cannot do anything in Denmark without integrating this.
And third question. So please.
I'm from the Minister from Lithuania. I work in the field of renewable energy, and I would like to address our colleague from the Minister of Energy and ask you to share with us what kind of support mechanisms Lithuania will use to allocate the financial support and for renewable energy. I mean, you're going to do a tariff-based premium or investment support. And do you think that it's fair that biomass will receive the biggest share of support? Because as I understood from your presentation, the others already reached the national goals, the solar, the wind, and hydro, so there will be no progress until 2020. And is that fair? Because biomass is still that least sustainable, because it's still using wood and releases CO2, while solar and wind energy is almost CO2 neutral. And also I would like to give an open question for our guests, maybe from our guests from Sweden and Denmark. Maybe they could give as they use renewable energy for decades, maybe they could give some key advices for countries like ours, how to start and how to really be good at using renewable energy.
I will start from the last question. I don't know why, but it's some. About the support scheme, so as I mentioned, it will be supported from European Union structural funds, and that will be support to the investment. We also looking for using financial mechanisms to make investment bigger from the same amount of money, but mainly still it's investments to the support to the investments. Talking about the biomass and other renewable energy sources, I cannot say that that's really unfair, because as they were shown on the graph, all other technologies already reached the targets, and the targets were set for all the technologies according to Lithuanian possibilities, according to the potential, and all these other technologies were supported already. So we only reaching what was planned some years ago, and I don't think that it's really unfair. That's all. Thank you.
Maybe you could add something.
As I stated in my introduction, I'm not an expert in support schemes. So I think it would be unfair of me to give you a clear, as well as you said, clear, or maybe it's unfair really, but I think the Danish case shows that if you have a clear policy on how you work with renewables, then and there is an agreement and a support both in the parliament and in between citizens on that is the way that we are heading, then you are on the right track. But I do not know, how you work with it in Lithuania, so it would be unfair of me just to say that, you should do this and that, and then you would be on the right track. I could only say, as a general statement, that would be that having a clear policy and having ideas on where you're going and having the support amongst citizens and in the parliament that this is the way that you're heading, then I would say you're on the right track.
I would like to give an example from north of Sweden in a municipality, Piteå. They decided 10 years ago that they should really go for renewable energy. And they focused on, they have a pulp and paper industry, and they focused on use the waste products from the pulp and paper industry, black liquor, and they also decided to build a demonstration plant for producing biodiesel from this black liquor, and they also decided to promote other waste products from this pulp and paper industry, and they now have another biodiesel plant for production of biodiesel from pine oil. And they also decided to really go for wind power. So they planned for wind power in the municipality, and they are now building the largest wind power park in Europe, I think, 1,101 wind turbines. And that show that the politician really decided to do that, and they planned for it, and now it's a reality. There are I would like to say my favorite example is Samsø in Denmark. They decided to be fossil free, and decided also to really spend put up a big budget for realize to be independent of import of energy. Now they are independent, almost, I think. So there have to be awareness of politicians and decision makers to really go for it.
I could just make one statement, because the Danish government in, I think it was 2007, set up this climate change commission, which was constituted of experts who gave a report in 2000, or present a report 28 September 2010 on how Denmark could be independent on fossil fuels in 2050. And that report was very well taken, both by politicians, by the industry, and by citizens. And that means that now the parliament is working on, so that was really the start-up of discussing how Denmark could be independent on fossil fuels in 2050. And that means that the Danish Energy Agency, but also the Parliament, is as such supporting the idea that Denmark eventually has to be independent on fossil fuels in 2050. And that, of course, means that we're setting up targets on how to achieve and reach that goal. So that could be one thing, is that, you know, setting up institutions or something which can, you know, pave the way and, you know, start discussions on how to reach that target. And that was very successful in Denmark. And you can find it on the Danish Energy Agency homepage. There is a report from that commission on how Denmark can be independent on fossil fuels in 2050. It's called the Danish. I think it's called the Danish Climate Change Commission. Yeah. And you can find on the Danish Energy Agency. But otherwise, you can come up to me and then we can try to find it. But it is on the webpage on the Danish Energy Agency. And that has been translated into Chinese and all that. So we are working very hard on reaching that goal. Thank you.
I will begin answering the point on integration of energy systems, and yeah, this is the way forward. We have one energy system, and there are electricity grids and heat, but also storage, and we will have to be smart enough to put all this together. Thanks for this. This is the way forward for sure. It's not easy, but this is the way forward. On geothermal, I'm not an expert, but what I understand is that with the current technology and the current knowledge of the underground, because geothermal is about the underground, only the real sweet spots can be today exploited. So there is a lack of knowledge. In Europe, we know very little about the underground and lack of the right technologies, appropriate technologies. We have to invest on this. I will defend this. But I wouldn't forget social concerns about whatever is happening in the underground. And the stories going on with shale gas and other things are, or CO2 storage and other things, are a clear symptom of this. In our society, it seems that the underground is a sort of gray area that we don't want to look into. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, of course, I totally agree also with the point made before over here, to combine electricity, heating, grids and storage systems. Of course, this was also one point of our assessment, which due to time reasons I couldn't present. Which is the only possibility to integrate more volatile renewables, of course. We also have to take into account here the gas infrastructure, of course, as a third option. So these are more dimensions to be considered. And thanks for the recommendation. Of course, this was missed in the presentation before. Yeah, if it comes to geothermal, I think we're the same opinion, and it's also what the Swiss project has shown, and this skepsis now about all the difficulties which are ongoing with the same problems, and also with the rights, of course, in terms of underground energies. If it comes to the Lithuanian, well, I mean, one point already made is you said you only have to invest in one technology. I mean, that's what I also wanted to say. You have to monitor with care, because it's not like what it is now will be the same by 2020. You will have different demand patterns, for example. You might have an increased demand, which might also increase the need to develop other technologies as well. And there, the most important is the stable framework conditions. And if you say now we can stop it in the one, and then there's no stability behind, which of course is not attractive for investors. So this is definitely something which is very recommended.
Yes, I can just reinforce what Christian just said, that it's the long-term legal commitment that really matters. I mean, as long as there's a target, and there's a national target for renewables or European target, whatever it is, there will be investments. It doesn't matter what support scheme you end up deciding on, but there will be investments if there's that credibility. So that's the key element. On the global competitiveness, I mean, this package we just adopted is exactly about keeping costs down, make it cost efficient. And I mean, there's no secret that Europe has higher energy costs than America. We also have higher social costs and some high environmental legislation, etc. So I mean, that's an ongoing story. and we try to make the best out of it. But at the same time, you have to differentiate what's prices and what's costs. That's a big factor as well. I think our industry is quite competitive in that area, and that drives our competitiveness and innovation, and we are quite efficient at making better use of energy than maybe the Americans are. Just look at our cars, look at our homes. I mean, in America, I don't know how many houses are still built just from plastic, and that's why they also fly away when there's a typhoon or something else. So that's just one point on that, and then the Commission is doing now this big report on costs and prices that should be published jointly with the 2030 publication beginning of next year. So watch out for that.
Yeah, thank you so much. To my mind, the best way is not to share experience, but to multiply it. Renewables is not a highway. Renewables is a network of routes. Dear ladies and gentlemen, conclusion, we're still on good track with domination of optimistic, realistic approach. Thank you so much for your attention, and see you later on.